Hey, welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we're busy trying to get ready for our inspection, a yearly thing that the DSWD do, as we are, in spite of what, various idiots around the planet keep saying that we're not a registered charity. Here's a suggestion for anyone who is out there saying we're not a legal charity. Why don't you just Google Terence Beth Martin Giving Hope? Why don't you just check for yourself instead of watching these channels that specialize in gossip, hearsay, and just plain lying? You can go and you can check these things out for yourself. So do that and have a ball. Meantime, we're in the middle here of getting ready. This is actually officially our office, so we need and have been needing to get down to to painting. You can see there's a ton of painting to be done. We're having the electrics checked at the moment. So there's our breaker box, but I think that by and by I think we will end up having the whole thing upgraded, as you can see there. Let me see. And so the rest is just kind of the dog work, just to get the basic in my plan, get the basic in white. So this really mainly is an undercoat of white, but these main panels in the middle where the windows are, that will remain in white, and probably ceiling. And the ceiling panels, they'll be coloured different, but it will be nothing really blatant. It will be fairly subtle pastel colours, as we did in the living room. And so that's where we're at right now. It's a lot of work, but you just have to kind of plod along and do the next foot and the next foot and the next foot, and that's the way it goes. We had this extra window put in, which I'm very pleased about. At one point I'd intended that there was a disc here. This is the disc, dismantled of course, and that used to be here before we decided to upgrade and panel everything on the inside. So we found that corner was too dark, so we had another window put in, which is good because that's an opening window, sliding opening window, and one more over there. I wish actually we'd made one of these a slider, but we didn't. We could have made that one a slider too. Of course, they are more expensive, so that's something that you have to calculate. This is a one-piece window there. And you've got various regulations that you have to adhere to. You have to have all of your permits and licenses and awards. Our solicitation, what you have is various projects that you do, especially with the police and the partnerships that we've done with the PNP. We get a certificate from them that's all nicely framed, and it thanks us for our participation in the project. So we do that. I've got a ton of work to be doing in here. Yes, as I said, there's there's various restrictions, requirements, and this has to be the emergency exit, of course. So after our little adventure with the fire, we've now come to, we had that whole thing checked out and made safe, and so as far as the house goes, we're feeling confident. But it is the Philippines, and what passes for confidence and a complete checkout here is really not the same as in the West. You have to face up to that. We're living in a country where 7 people can ride a motorcycle, and people can ride the strong backs that go with the delivery truck. All of the people that are in the back, they'll travel on top of the materials, often on top of the cab. There's not really very much by way of checking on the back lights of any vehicle that's on the road, and sometimes vehicles will travel with no lights at all, which can be scary if you're overtaking, and if you get behind, coming back at night, if we get behind a tricycle, and tricycle can be just poodling along at, say, 25 or 20 kilometers an hour. So it's just not practical to say, well, don't do any overtaking. We have 20 kilometers to get through from Talabon to where we turn off onto our dirt road. So you have to put your headlights on, and fortunately, of course, with the Raptor, they're excellent lights, and so that's about as safe as it can be. The big risk is if you are on your own side of the road and heavy goods is coming the other way, and they're not dipping their headlights, and so you're really heading into a black hole on your side of the road, and your headlights, no matter how powerful, will not cut that. And then you have to allow for the fact that there can be people sitting on with their butt on the white line, and the roads are just not, well, we're living on the national highway. It's being improved all the time. They're widening it as and where they can, but it's still not that wide. So overtaking and even travelling on your own side of the road after dark means that generally, I think most expats will say that they don't drive at night, and that is probably the safest that you can do it, is by not driving at all. So life in the Philippines, as I've said before, not in any way to discourage anybody, because I'm very, very happy living here in the Philippines, and the good far outweighs the bad. But for those who want the kind of regulation that gives a greater degree of safety, this can be a tough one. It can be a tough one for those people. I say that those expats that come out here and they have a house which is done to all of the same specifications, as well as close as possible, that they've done overkill on everything, and they are very happy, and they have the stainless steel kitchen. Well, that's great. It goes out as far as the front door or the back door, and then it will be according to life in the Philippines. And it's only when you get here that I think you have to reevaluate the way that you think about most things. And that's not easy. It really isn't easy to reevaluate the way that you've been thinking in your life, the frame of reference that you have been living by, because it comes as a shock to see how differently people live here. I read somewhere one report about a lady, a mother, who had allowed her 2 children to walk, I think it was either 2 or 3 blocks to school without being accompanied, and she was dealt with very severely by the law. She was reported and I think severely penalised, if not put in jail. So that's where most people coming from America, the ones that are disillusioned with the amount of regulation, will always say that they are creating the nanny state. They call it the nanny state, where every conceivable way that someone can be in any kind of danger is at least, that they are at least trying to eliminate that, and it just plain doesn't really work. Here you see children walking to school when life is normal. You see kids walking to school who can only be 6 and 7, 8 years old, and they're walking along the national highway to get to school. And it's more like Thunder Road, for most people. The Mad Max movie, Thunder Road. It can be pretty wild because there's little adherence to a speed limit. And the problem that I've found, that as far as driving goes and why Asians drive differently is because they don't receive any training as a requirement for a license. So, whereas I remember I never rode a motorcycle when I was in America, but a friend of mine decided that she wanted to get a motorcycle license, and so she had to actually go to a school. She had to go to a school. They rented a motorcycle out. There was a large training ground, like a huge parking lot, if not a parking lot, and they went through all of the various needs in terms of skill that you would have to acquire in order to safely ride a motorcycle. There's no such thing here. We're still trying to find somewhere where a school that's close enough to make it practical for Beth to go to lessons. I think that most husbands out there will agree that husbands teaching wives to drive doesn't usually go very far. So I've tried with Beth, but I think that she will actually do better by having an instructor. I'll be very interested to find out and discover how they train people here, just on very basic things like double parking. Here you will find that there is no awareness of what double parking is. So everybody double parks. On especially the national highway, which has vehicles travelling very fast, they have people pulling off, but still keeping half of their vehicle on the side of the highway, which, if they wanted to, if they were aware, they would be able to pull off completely, so that therefore they would not be creating any kind of a hazard. But they don't, because there's no training. When I started to drive, I remember I started to drive when I was very young, I think 17 or 18. Not very young for an American, because most Americans, especially those living in a rural place, who lived on farms would have been driving a tractor from the age of about 7 years old. But I lived in the city in Manchester. I never had a chance to drive until I went into the army. But even then, when I just went thinking I could just go, well, I can drive, and I went for my driver's license, and I realized very quickly that you need training. You need to know how to pass your driving test, because with a driving test, you need to meet certain requirements, certain skill levels which you're expected to have. You're expected to know what a three-point turn is, and especially in the UK, you need to be able to parallel park. You need to be able to reverse around a corner. Now that's something that I don't think maybe doesn't even, it's not even on the requirement thing now. But when I took other people that I taught to drive in Fort Myers, and I took them for their test, what I saw them doing was in a parking lot, they would have to perform certain manoeuvres between traffic cones, and so they'd have to be able to reverse into given areas. And so they did receive training, and they received common sense, good roadmanship, if you like, and they received that training, and so things generally were much safer on the road. Not so here, and that will really stick out to anybody that comes and starts driving here, will be that it's a little bit like Dodge City on the road. And so that's one of the things you need to get used to. Oh well, that's my update on our extension, our office. As you can see, that seems to have clicked off at the moment, but that's our our camera set up for outside. Okay, well, thanks a lot for looking in, and we'll see how much painting I can get done tomorrow. Bye for now.